forward and stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, any corrections to the agenda or consent calendar? We'd like to.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
That motion passes unanimously.
All right, item 6A.
Mr. Chair, item out of order, comment from the public, item number 2 on the agenda.
I read that off on the presentation.
We have a speaker.
Oh, we did?
Did you want to speak now? Did you want to speak then? Or did you want to just turn in the speaker card? Did you want to speak? Did you want to address the board?
Or 6C or
C.
Yeah.
So when you arrive at 6C. Thank you. All right, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Trevor Coolidge, Senior Engineer, here to discuss a requested change order for the 2023 Blackbark Water Line Replacement Project. So this requested change order is in the amount of $657,751. And what we're looking at is the mainline replacement of a 10-inch main running the length of the project corridor along Blackbark Avenue. During the project plan development phase in 2022, that line was expected to be much younger. Following bidding of the project in September of 2022, we found in our records it was actually much older. It was a former transmission main going from the Coal Creek filter plant all the way through to Tahoe. And so it actually was separate from the existing water system in the area. It was owned by a different water company, Tahoe Southside. And so after looking at the leak history and also looking at the age of the line, it suddenly became one of our critical lines for replacement. We had identified the surrounding lines and near Chincotin, Hancock, those streets as new replacement because they're small 2-inch sewer lines and poly lines, so this was the lines coming out. But so we looked at our available budgets. This project is primarily funded by a low-interest state revolving fund loan. Bids came in competitively. We had remaining funds available. So in December of last year, we had an estimate of about $785,000 for this work. The requested change orders for $657,000, so it's right in line with what we were estimating. It should be a bit more for the AD on Blackbark, but we're right in line with what we estimated. And we also have funds remaining on this low-interest state revolving fund loan. So our plan is we're using that to pay for this work. We're going to end up with a fairly complete, modernized water system in the area. We're replacing where we have duplicate lines, where we lack valves, we're reducing our shutdown areas, we're improving fire flows, we're adding fire hydrants. So there's slightly over 2,000 linear feet included in this change order, and along with additional mobilization, traffic control, service transfer costs, shooting shoring, all items are included in here for this increase in work, with a bulk being about $407,000 with water main. So I welcome any questions, but just wanted to stress that we thought the price for the work proposed by Victor Construction was competitive. The annual increase in construction costs is around 10%. We're just under that if you look at the linear foot costs of this change order. So we're right in line with what we've seen for annual escalation from when this was bid to when the work was actually completed. Again, we have remaining funds from the state revolving fund, and we're going to get a pretty good water system out of it.
Okay, any questions from the board? How many hydrants was in there?
So we're at 13, and I think we added a couple more, so about 15 in the project area.
Yeah, sounds like a great opportunity to take advantage of a great bid and be able to get the critical line replaced on Blackboard.
The reason there was actually leftover loan funds is because this was one water line of a bundled project, that we also received $1.2 million of Lake Tahoe restoration / crew.
Yeah. Great. Would you like me to read the requested board action?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I am requesting that we approve contract change order number 1 to Vincent Construction Incorporated in the amount of $657,751 and authorize the general manager to execute change order number 1.
Any additional conversation? Any comments from the public? Anybody have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And that motion passes unanimously.
Item 16.
Okay, item 16. These are the board policies, and board policies are reviewed on an ongoing basis, just as needed. When the district retained Jones Mayor, we worked with Keith to review the current board policies, and there were a couple of suggested changes made, which were provided to the board in the packet, in the revised version. So mostly they were cleaning up of some governmental code, which we verified all of those, and so went through and kind of made sure those are all updated. Provided some clarification and some cleaning up of language with some fees and some different things. And then a couple of minor updates, just, different wording and, a few little minor things. So nothing too substantial, but we wanted to make sure it came to the board since there were a few changes to some of the wording and things like that. If there's any questions that Keith and I can address for you.
I read through it, believe it or not, and I just noticed that there's a couple comments that are lingering in there. It's more, seems to me more explanatory in terms of what was the changes for and why it was reasonable, that kind of thing. So that seems good. So changes.
And some of those cleaning up of the language, I figured Paul and I and Keith would work together, just kind of get that, some changes made to make sure that it's in online. And if the board has any input and wants to provide that, feel free to email me, Paul, or Keith.
Any comments from the audience on this item? Seeing none, somebody like to move on?
I'll go ahead and read the requested board action. Today we're asking for the board to approve minor amendments to the existing board policy as recommended by Keith Collins, General Counsel.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none,
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
The motion and a second. And that motion passes unanimously.
None. Next item, 16. Ryan?
Before Ryan starts the report, I just wanted to basically describe the procedure of how we're going to handle this today, this particular claim. So Ryan's going to provide a report on the claim as well as the recommendation that we received from JPIA, which is our insurance carrier. Following his report, the claimant, the owner of the business, are in the audience today. If they wish to address the board, obviously they can do that. Following their comments, we're actually going to break off and go into closed session next door to the conference room to talk about it for a few minutes, and then we'll come out and report out.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Ryan?
Good afternoon. Ryan Lee, Customer Service Manager. I'm here this afternoon to present to you a liability claim that we received from some customers who are the owners of a retail business in town that has been impacted by one of our capital improvement projects. So I'll give you a little bit of the context that goes along with this claim. So we received the claim on October 3rd from Steve and Ashley Nichols, who own, as I said, a retail business here in town that's been impacted by our hand lane water line replacement project. So to give you a little bit of background about this project, this is a project that's replacing an old 2-inch steel main line that runs down a private road, hand lane, and it provides service to their business and then a number of residential properties further down the road. And it's about 500 linear feet of new 8-inch water line that are going in there. and a little bit of the history on this project, this has been one of our priority projects just based on the condition of this old steel main line. For one thing, it's undersized, so there are some fire flow concerns, but the other issue we've had is that the main line was not in good shape. So we've had quite a few leaks and problems on that line, and so that's what brought this project kind of to the top of our priority list. The project was initially scheduled to be completed in 2022, and we actually bid that project and then canceled the bid after working with Steve and Ashley about the impact that we thought it was going to have on the business at that time. So we brought the project back this year and redid that with the constraint that it be done either before Memorial Day or after Labor Day to minimize the impacts on the business. The project was scheduled to be completed after Labor Day. Construction began about September 14th, and it was ongoing for a couple weeks. It's still not entirely complete. My understanding is that there's still some paving to be completed out there, but the majority of the work has been completed. The claim alleges that during this time, because of the nature of the construction and the nature of the location, so Ham Lane, their business is right on the corner of Ham Lane, which, as I said, is a private road, and Lake Tahoe Boulevard, and it's a narrow road. There's not a whole lot of room there, and their parking lot is right on Ham Lane, kind of right at the corner there next to their building. So during the work that we did, there was a lot of construction equipment that was in and around there. So what I've gotten, Trevor was the project manager on this, so I did get an update from him on what we were hoping to do to mitigate the impact, and they did maintain access. Like I said, there are some residential properties going in there, but the claim alleges that even though there may have been some access through that road into the parking lot, it was severely impacted. Again, just due to the nature of the location, that seems apparent. And there was just a lot going on around there. So the claim is, they are claiming approximately, at the time of the submission of the claim, so the losses were ongoing because the project was ongoing and still is. But at the time of the submission, the liability was estimated at $30,000 based on sales receipts the claim is provided from the last 3 years. So comparing 21 and 22 sales for September and October, the same time frame, to this year's sales, there's no noticeable impact, and they were asking for reimbursement for those lost sales revenues. And like I said, at that time, it was estimated about around $30,000. It would be higher, I imagine, at this point because, as I said, the work was ongoing. So I submitted this claim when we received, all of our claims go to JPIA, which is our liability insurance carrier. And what we do is that they launch an investigation and then they provide us a recommendation on whether they think we should accept the claim, reject it, or accept it in part. So the JPIA launched an investigation, and the conclusion of their investigation, their recommendation to the district was to reject this claim on the basis that the district has an obligation to maintain its water infrastructure and protect water quality, that public works projects by nature have unavoidable impacts, which the district is not able to fully mitigate, and that the district, in their opinion, is not liable for the unavoidable impact of completing these projects. This one in particular being just the nature of the location. So it's not that anything went particularly wrong with the project, it's just that performing or completing this work did have an impact on access to this business. And that seems to be reflected in the sales receipts and the historical receipts that they provided. So with that said, that is the recommendation that I'm bringing to the board just because that's what the JPIA has recommended to us. That is our standard practice. Their opinion is that the district does not have liability for these lost sales revenues because it is an unavoidable impact essentially of a planned capital project. So before the claimants have a chance to speak, I will answer any questions that the board has.
Any questions?
So the ongoing work on the street, is it still adjacent to the businesses, or is it more in the residential area and no longer impacting business operations?
The paving will, so my understanding is that the last remaining work is that we need to do some paving out there, which was scheduled to be done this week, and I'm not sure what the final schedule was for that, but that will impact the business as well. And part of it was that even though there was the work that was at the far end of the street, mainly on the residential side, there was still staging equipment that was impacting the parking area for this business. And so that was a part of the concern, is there was not a lot of room to store that equipment in this small area.
I guess maybe I'm reading kind of what you're asking, but it's more of a question of like, what was the duration in which our equipment was impacting that parking area, and I guess substantially impeding access to that right away.
I think substantially there were about 2 weeks in September.
2 weeks.
Yeah, during the runs of that work. And then a couple of days apart from that longer stretch.
Just assuming there was no other viable place to put that equipment.
Correct.
Right.
Any other questions? Mr. Nichols, did you want to address this?
I would. Yeah. First of all, thank you all for your time today. It's interesting that I feel I have to come and argue this point. First and foremost, the conditions of what we had understood this project to be were, not permanent people there for 2 weeks, and that there's going to be 2 days of closure, one on each end of the project. It turned out to be where we have at least 8 days of fully being closed and 6 days where we made just a couple of $100, where we, absolutely in this duration of time, like you said, just a couple of weeks, we absolutely lost over $30,000 in revenue as to our last couple of years of trending sales back. As far as your comment just there about there was nowhere else to leave the equipment, we had previous discussions as far as the logistical operations of how that was going to go down. And there is an empty lot that would have sufficed parking for all of the large tractors and trailers that were literally behind the fence of my property line. You assumed it was taking up some of my parking lot. It took up, I have 18 spaces, 3 of which are in front, which is where the trench is. So that is where all the cones lie for our kind of access to get into the building. But then the remaining chunk right in front of the main door of my business had large trucks and trailers. I've got a 16 to 18 foot flatbed trailer with 25-foot blue culverts poking into my front door of my business, where there's no reason. I drive trailers all the time that they couldn't park in many other directions or positions that we had already previously discussed and agreed upon. And when they were asked to move, it was as if we were irritating them. It was every time I call, it felt like I was being looked at as if I was being aggressive or hostile, but what was happening was in no way what we had previously discussed. He talked about diverting the project into a slower period of the calendar for us in the retail world, which he did. But that decision came after their own observations of them coming initially when the spring melt was coming, and that is why they determined to defer the project, is because it was too saturated to tear up the parking lot in that time. As far as the state of the parking lot right now and the asphalt that needs to be done moving forward, yeah, there's a channel that might be 3 feet that you probably plan on doing, but you guys absolutely caved in with the equipment more than that. So my ask and hope is that you guys will take that into consideration when you go to do the final project. I'm not asking for the entire lot, but understand that you guys definitely crumbled more than what was just filled up. So I just want to speak to that now. We are a small business where I'm literally here from work and construction. I just started at the beginning of the summer because we just ascertained the real estate and flatlined in the summer and we're making no sales. So I'm working construction every day to just make ends meet and not have to lay off my staff, and then something like this happens and makes a monumental drain on the operations of our business. As a small business owner, I'm asking for you guys to really understand and take that into consideration. I have some other points for our conversation to just briefly touch on, like our FedEx and UPS deliveries were absolutely hampered and halted, where I was not able to receive quantities of $60,000 or more of food boards and bindings, things like that, where I had scheduled around the agreement that I had with STPUD, as far as the interruptions of my business, so that I could receive those things, have my staff there and paid for to, accomplish these tasks within my store. All of that was halted. These people were sent home,
everybody's hurting right now. I'm just asking for you to recognize the trickle down that this has within this business, only to substantiate and justify our claims. I was really appalled when I spoke with your insurance representative, and they stated that this is something that they are going to try to defer or decline. I haven't even touched on the fact that you guys did this project on my private property. Like I said, I recently just ascertained that real estate, which is a huge achievement for my family and my business, but then we flatlined in the summer, so I'm already financially scrambling trying to work. Nobody discussed in any way, shape, or form a pre-existing plan from SDPUD to maybe accommodate some of those anticipated losses going into this project. I feel like that would have been a relevant and necessary conversation. Am I out of line to say that this absolute interference with my ability to operate business is not able to be monetarily compensated for? Am I out of line? And that's kind of the expectation. I hate that word, but I asked somebody.
As I said, we're going to talk about some of the details.
I understand.
In closed session. And then following that, if you have any other further questions, maybe you can ask him, or if you're ready to provide direction at that time, you can go ahead and do that.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So, you had referenced kind of the flatlining events over the summer.
Yes, sir.
But that was prior to the commencement of construction.
It certainly was, but it certainly didn't help the money that I should be making this month that was absolutely not able to be made because of the presence of that project. And if the project would have even remotely gone like we had anticipated via conversation and kind of planning between us, which didn't happen in the way it was discussed, we wouldn't have had that sort of a loss. When you say we kind of have access, I remind you that we are right on Highway 50 with a very small entry. I was told by your insurance representative, oh, you have a brick walkway that goes right up from Highway 50 for the walkers by. Who's walking from where in that location of town? It's not like I'm down in the Heavenly Village.
Yeah, no, definitely. I guess what I'm trying to get a sense of more just your market realities as they existed in here in comparison to your time. So how did
You can speak to that.
your summer revenue,
I know you're trying to downplay it for purposes of kind of debating.
Our summer in general was down. Going into the September and October though, when Stupid was on our property, it wasn't down just a little, it was down to where we were making $100 and $200 a day. And that place needs $500 a day just to unlock the
To
door.
answer that point of your question, right now in these times that we're asking for, the flat line of summer is bouncing back because we're bouncing into a different season. Based on a couple of hard good sales, and we have made more than what we need and what we historically would have been making in these times. So to make that claim, I'm at the end of, me trying to salvage things for my family starting 6 months ago. I'm about to stop doing that to roll back into my store because we're picking back up. And this time of picking back up is what you were hindering. My abilities to receive shipments, to staff my people to actually operate those things and get ready for the season to come. This is all just operation as usual that we are not able to do. So.
At the end of the day, our lease is $15,000, and I have 3 people on staff that are already working other jobs, and I'm already running skeleton schedules. So it's really hard when days that maybe we should be making 1,000 or 2,000, which is very, very minimal for us right now. We're making 100 and 200, and we're being told that we still have entry into our property when there's signs. I have pictures of signs that say, road closed or no right turn. And it just, I was there every day for this, so he's at work every day, and I got to see it unfold in front of our eyes, and it was just like a big construction zone. So regardless of the entry access, I think when people are going to shop at places, I had phone calls of people saying, are you guys tearing this place down? I'm not even making this up. I'm like, no, we're open. Like, please come in. And so just the unsightliness that we turned that place into a construction site for 5 weeks versus what I anticipated being 2 and a couple of days of being closed, it really just kept stretching and compounding, and all of that, combined just created this huge loss for us. And during a time when we're on one side receiving shipments that are big shipments, and like he said, all we have to do right now is sell 2 snowboards, and it makes our day, right? Well, I can't even get that stuff in the store, and my patrons can't get in. The whole thing is just, game over. So it's just the compound effect that it caused on us, and it started to add up super quick, and we drew from every single source that we had to pay our lease in October. And I'm worried that we're not going to be able to pay it in November. So it's huge on us and all these families that are working for us. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Any other questions before? If we're gonna,
I speak with regards to the same items, it's convenient, I'll wait for the board to speak among themselves if you wish.
item 16?
Yes.
Oh, this comes in.
Thank you, folks. Wayne Butcherbar, I'm the owner of Butcherbar Construction. I was there most days. You can look through the photos there, I can see that most of these photos do not suggest the tales of what I heard here, is that we always maintain an access at the minimum of 10 foot wide for emergency vehicles. Heaven forbid if one of my men needs an emergency or we have a trench accident. You always have to maintain that. Residents that are farther back have to throw them. A couple of them are elderly. We use a sign that says, if you look at the pictures, it says road closed and through traffic. That is just a standard highway sign that is used. It may be misleading, but there's nothing else that we can reasonably use there. Caltrans came by, and we were not on the Caltrans right away, but because they didn't want cars backing up on it, they asked us to put a no right turn in the eastbound lane. The westbound lane did not have any impact in getting in there. I was observing and dealing with UPS and FedEx trucks during that time. I'm exceptionally offended to hear that my crew was not polite and not energetic if something needed to be moved, because I know them much better than that. I've been in this business 51 years, which is by far not the first business I ever been in front of. The fact that it's private property, there is a very clear prescriptive easement there. It can be maintained. It must be maintained, not only for this business, but for the other water customers. We're also operating on something very, very inferior there, which is a horribly corroded 2-inch pipe that serves 11 homes with no chance of fire protection. So I think it is a significant benefit to us. And he also mentioned this was scheduled to be done last year. We held that contract last year. Even though we were shut down first in May, holding us till after Labor Day. After Labor Day, we elected not to do it because it was changing too fast. We made no claim to this board, even though we should have had a business interruption or lack of sales or at the minimum the mobilization of the work. We just let it ride. Because DUD has been a very, very good customer for us. We're appreciative. Over 10 years, we've worked for you folks. So this year, it came in an addendum to the project that we did, which is the black mark. I would surely not like to have to do this one too far away from the original project, but I'm sympathetic to the needs that it has to be done in order to try to maintain and bring this water system into the new millennium. The water system needs a lot of work. Ham was a very, very poor location. We took a look at trying to do this before May. Bill was correct that the back portion of the road was too saturated. We didn't think the trenches would stand if we got to put equipment right next to the trench. So we elected to wait until after Labor Day. The number of days that we're working there, running that main line was approximately a 2-day event. But services was another 2 days. Much of the other work that goes on there is a very limited footprint. Testing, trying to, we ended up with an obstacle right at the front where we couldn't find the location to connect. And that was a little bit tough. But we are crowded off to one side. And I don't think that there should have been any access to the vehicles. I'm hopeful that we contributed just a little bit into their sales, because I sent my wife there to go buy something for all 8 grandkids. So I know we spent over $2,000 in that store over a couple of different days. But the other way you need to look at these things is what a baseline sales can fluctuate quite a bit. in a business such as this. And the board's obligation is not a total loss of sales, but more along the lines of a reasonable profitability on those sales, if they're going to consider anything at all. It's really not going to pay us $1,189 a day and not receive any merchandise out of that. And I don't know what that looks like, but there would certainly be a lot more work that would be necessary in order to even evaluate this claim. I don't see the board has any other good choice except the recommendation of rejection at this point. A lot more work is done against this. I'm actually a field expert in filing claims against public entities. So this is something that they would have to file this claim. They're going to get an initial rejection. And then at some point there may be a sit down to try to review and try to evaluate its merit. But there's virtually no information here to evaluate its merit. And it's an ongoing event. Not that it happens a lot in projects, and there's a tight location, but quite a bit more work would be necessary to try to even monetize this claim. And it's not just a matter of sales or projections. It's a lot more work that's necessary. But I do want to follow up on if my manner uncourteous for any reason. I don't put up with that too much. I think my peers are among the best to try to accommodate and reach out to the public. We encounter tight locations all the time. We'll go as far as packing groceries into people, making them move their cars, turn them around if they're a frail driver. So if there was anybody that needed to get in, we would have always accommodated. If there's any question,
Not a question to that, actually. What was the anticipated timeline for construction? Mobilization. I guess really to the heart of the question, you had a projected, timeline for impact. Did you meet that timeline? Was it exceeded?
The duration of mainline work, I believe, was as anticipated. That was 2-3 days with mainline work. Service transfers when going according to plan. We were at the intersection, the interconnection point, longer than expected. There were a number of conflicting utilities. Those utilities have been backfilled with concrete, so that created an extra day of work there. So there was trying to dig in a 20-foot wide private road with a large piece of equipment, a dump truck next to it, and there's a blockage there for that day of connection there, and then the 2 additional days. So we did have a solid day of working across the business's frontage, the parking lot frontage on Hand Lane. Additionally, there are a couple of days that are tying in, 2-3 days tying in at the frontage. There's also a lot of movement of equipment in and out to bring in pipeline trucks, you're laying out pipe, fixing out pipe. So it was fairly close to anticipated, but just the constraints of being in that tight location was what was most significant. And it's interesting talking access versus water supply, because you won't hear any complaints about the water supply, but that isn't the nature of the business. So typically we're dealing with putting out daycares or restaurants due to water supply, but this was an issue of access and activity in the area. And again, it's also compounded by the work immediately adjacent to US 50 due to that required signage, just because they want to make sure the traffic that is slowing to make that turn isn't coming backing up.
That was the Caltrans requirement?
Yes. When you're working that closer proximity, they want to make sure that people aren't backing up onto the highway.
So like in total, we're talking 10 days, 10 days where equipment.
That would be my estimate. That's the group.
September 15th to 23rd-ish.
The 14th forward, and I think the nature, and it wasn't continuous, it was somewhat intermittent because they did come back around October 2nd, I believe, was when we first started making the connection to the highway and so it was intermediate. And then some of the cones and instructions you had mentioned of that, for example, we're doing a pressurization of bacterial testing. So there'll be a sample port with like a cone over it. So there are cones there. There is something there, but it's relatively minor compared to the other activities.
Was there any signage that indicated that businesses were still open during construction?
I don't believe we used the signage.
No, I don't believe we did. No, we did not have that. And if I could speak to the durations of work that he's done.
Did you have any other?
No, I mean, I guess this is a less than an answer your question, but this is what I think that's a wide idea. And just thinking about this, the window to do this is basically May 1st to October 15th, right?
And then we tried to avoid the high season in terms of after Labor Day, and even beyond that.
Right, but I think with you folks are saying that the high season for them is not summer.
Oh, so your high season's just after Labor Day, or doesn't it work?
No, we asked for an extension and in the thought that it would be a well planned out situation, and that what was being brought to us was truth, that you guys would be closed for 2 days, we'll be out of here in a couple of weeks, we'll keep it tight, and none of that happened. Our property became a glorified construction zone that was not accessible to anybody via walking or car. And my sales history is super consistent. I can give you 20 years of sales history on that store. It doesn't change. Fluctuates around 5,000, but our monthly sales are on point. Every single month we know what we're going to bring in. So to say there's fluctuations in sales in this town, I have been in this business my entire life and I understand that. This is not a fluctuation, right? This is a huge loss. And this is the only thing that's changed in this time. And so to me, had it have been a quick 2-week time and 2 days closed, I could deal with that. And I want to know when those days are, so that when my guy who's a single dad shows up to work, has to call me and go, hey, I can't work today. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know that. You know, the compound effect of it was.
And again, I'm not trying to offend you, sir, or displace anybody to say you need to pay me, but like we said, we have concrete anticipatory numbers that we basically run our business off of. Just to have a municipality come in and say, I'm just going to do this kind of eminent domain style and screw you and the effect that it has on you, I'm not saying that's what's happening yet, but it seems like that's what's happening after speaking with the insurance representative. Hearing you talk about your expertise of 50 years, you know, it's like, I'm not here to upset anybody, but at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is we have a measurable loss. And it wouldn't have happened if this operation wouldn't have happened.
And I was there every day. Multiple days I had to ask. I got to the point where I stopped being nice about it. I pull into my driveway, and there's a car parked in front of the door, or a work truck. Hey guys, can you please park your truck in a parking spot or somewhere not in front of my front door? I have pictures
We're
of
trying to
all the
open
I have
business,
pictures
and
of
the employee
employees.
says, what business?
Oh my gosh, and I have employees sitting around smoking cigarettes and,
Totally.
you know, kicking around, and which is fine, it's not I'm not paying salaries, but to say that the respect level was there and the work was being accomplished in a quick manner, knowing that we were trying to run a business, is not what was happening. I was there every day, I saw it.
I had no idea this was going to be how this went. I'm apologetic if anybody was offended, but at the end of the day, like I said, we're just a hardworking young family that just wants to discuss the actual losses that happened.
Okay, we're getting ready to move this into closed session. If there's any more comments prior to that?
Maybe just one quick one. The question, the board fielded a question about whether the actual construction timeline went consistent with what the planning was. Okay, we took one extra day at the final connection at the State Highway. There was some obstacles and the pipe didn't come as far as we expected, so we didn't make that tie-in that same day. But in advance of that, unbeknownst to us, we chose to run the main line, but not run the services, because that would create a bigger disruption of the road and an additional day. So we ran most of the services on the day of the tie-in to mitigate that down, to not lose that day. In the back section, we changed out the pipe type from PVC to HDPE. That took an extra day, but that was in the back unaffected area. The other thing that we did to try to accommodate this was there was about 300 or so feet of asphalt from a vacant lot to pass this property to the front. We could have dug that in one day, but to avoid the serious interruption, we dug halfway, so access was available, finished it up. The following day, we're able to make that open pretty quickly. We should have had the digging done by not too long after opening time, if not at opening time. We waited until September because we were unable to make the May 31st deadline of completing it before. We knew that we wouldn't make that, so we waited till after Labor Day. I'm seeing that things look slow, and I'm begging and lobbying the PUD members and the independent consulting inspector. Is there a way we can go here in August or September if we're going to get across here in a couple of days? I think we should have gone much earlier, so I kind of feel frustrated if waiting till September turns out to have been incorrect, because that's what was pre-negotiated, that's what went into our contract documents. Contract documents are a great baseline, but if people are all talking together, you could find maybe a better opportunity to do it. So if September was the worst possible month to do it, I'm sorry about that. We surely would have liked to have done something before that, rather than be hung out as far as we are now. We paved this thing now. These are choices that I would hope that the business owner had input in, and I would hope that they received the request and thought to try to go at a different time that might have been. We were open to working it at night if necessary, but it's hard to do with entering the highway. But it is, I'm not seeing the same level that this killed off sales. And if we pave there, we're a little bit of an obstacle. We were going to try and make it this week. I think it's going to be Monday or Tuesday now. After that, I would hope sales balloon right back up. But I watched the place often. There was not a single week this summer that I did not go in there and take a look, continue to watch the soil. And I would be hard pressed to have myself witnessed a full parking lot. I would sure like to see the photos of that, or the cash register receipts suggested.
Why are you
the sales
talking
and
about
activity.
this when in fact it is just a matter of the fact that you interrupted the business? I'm not even saying that September was the greatest month. Again, why is this going as if it's a court litigation when the basis of the claim is that we lost?
I also provided all of this. I've been super transparent about all of our sales, and they're all there if you ever want to see them. And we don't need a full parking lot to have a good day.
And, you know, we also want to make sure that water line gets replaced. I'm not saying the severity and necessity of that project isn't there. I'm not trying to disrespect you.
This is kind of involved into a public hearing, which is not agendized on the agenda for that purpose. If every member of the public has the opportunity to make comments, and so at this point, get to the board.
Yeah, so I appreciate your guys' input on this, and we are going to go into closed session, so I guess give us a few moments to have a conversation.
The board voted unanimously to reject the claim, but also directed the general manager to initiate negotiations for potential settlement with the client.
Interpretation, what does that mean?
I believe that is going to bring it to you.
All right. Moving on in the agenda. Okay. Standing in committees, Nick, first off.
Sure. We had an operations committee earlier this week. We are doing kind of a new thing in operations committee where we're inviting other segments of the district's operations to visit and give, and this was, I think, partially my request, being a relatively new board member. I don't know how long I can claim that.
Keep trying.
I'll keep that thing right. But just trying to kind of better familiarize myself with the district's operations. And this week we had Mark, our water resources manager, and Dan from the lab manager. And it was great. It was great to hear about what's going on out there. Mark was informing us about his work with Paloma well to get that well back online, which is huge for us. I think it gives us a lot more options as a district in terms of not only maintaining other aspects of the water system and using that as extra capacity. So that was great to hear that coming along so well. So thanks, Mark, and see you. And other than that, I think we covered a lot of the existing projects that are going, because we're trying to wind down our construction season in terms of grading. So heard update on the Black Bart water line replacement project, and some other critical projects that are going on. So, not a lot to report out other than that, but if you have more to add.
Just to say that our water consumption's is lower and lower. It seems like they're trending down. That's what's going on there. But also they're deploying some new technology to detect leakage in our system, which is great. Our reactive work orders are down compared to last year. And that's also us. Any other? Okay. Moving on to board member reports. Nick, did you have anything you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I guess just one thing that kind of keeps on thinking about, just in reference to the call I was having earlier today, is just, going to grant funding. I talked about this Shane, and I know it's a passion Nick as well. Sitting here right now, I actually don't have a great understanding of the grants we're going after, the process, any of those things. I love the opportunity to be kind of, Nick was saying, the ops committee, kind of more educated in that reality. I know there's a lot of green grant opportunities and various different things. And just to, again, just become more educated in that space, I think that would be great for me, just because I feel really lacking in that area. And then I guess to just kind of reiterate on the discussion from the previous board meeting pertaining to the fleet evaluation that we discussed, and just kind of theme on that again. But that's all for me today.
Okay, moving on to staff and training reports. Looks like Julie's going to provide an update on the solar project.
Good afternoon, board. I guess I'm just going to give a brief update on where we're at with the solar project. I think that you're all aware that the environmental documentation is complete and submitted to the clearinghouse last month. We have now received our timber harvest permit, so that piece of the puzzle is in place. The city's use permit through the planning commission, some of the planning on November 16th. So that is moving forward on that timeline. One of the challenges that we have had is pinning Liberty down to the interconnection requirements. So we've made some good progress on that this week. There was one term of the draft contract that the developer was concerned about, which was basically stipulating that, okay, this is the equipment that we need for the intertie, and Liberty's timeline for installation of it is 12 to 18 months. So the developer said, hold on, that's going to blow our project timeline if we can't intertie for 12 to 18 months. And so we would like to put in a clause to the agreement that would allow us as the developer, to install the equipment ourselves, have it checked out by Liberty, and then have them sign off on it. And after mulling that over in-house, my understanding is Liberty will be modifying the agreement to include that as a construction option in the agreement, and get that draft back to us by the end of this week, so it's tomorrow. So that is good news, because it should help our developer to finalize securing the funding for the project. TRPA, the developer is continuing to hammer out the resolution of some of the requirements that stemmed from the site walk that they did with Paul Nielsen from TRPA 8 weeks ago. And so we just had a call, Trevor and I did last week, to talk them through what we thought their expectations exactly would be, particularly surrounding the access road that goes from our current fence warning out to the solar array. The plans that they had turned in showed that that would be stabilized but not paved. TRPA was looking for pavement. I let them know that we've had one project where we had an access road that was not going to be continuous use. where TRPA was in agreement, for us not using, AC pavement, but, instead just like a compacted aggregate base. So I sent them, our old TRPA documentation from that project to see if that had, to get them any traction, so they could get this point resolved and get the review of the application moving forward. So that's where we stand as of today on TRPA. There's still going to be a fairly substantial review period, within TRPA, and we'll try and keep moving, moving that all forward through our contacts, to make sure that the project is moving. I expressed to the developer our concerns over the dropping of trees in advance of the next nesting season, and so he was going to work with Rob Rowick, their environmental consultant, to see if he thought that there were options for getting out in front of that next nesting season. He said, we do believe that we have to have the TRPA permit in place before we can start dropping the trees. And so this may all come to a head, midwinter, early spring kind of time frame. So, more to come on that. The final piece of the puzzle, for the project will be once the TRPA permit is in place, then our SWIP can be finalized, incorporating any modifications that have to happen to the project plan through the TRPA permitting process. So, that's kind of the whole process. Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep us posted.
Yeah.
Maybe next officer we can talk about it again. See where we're side of things.
Yeah. So progress is being made, but more coming.
To give it just another quick kind of solar update since we're in this phase, I was informed that there's actually an opportunity to petition the CPUC for kind of a critical project that's kind of outside the bounds of the existing tariff structure. And so I'm actually talking about it with Shelley on Tuesday, but I think there could be other solar opportunities in the future. We'll see how this one goes.
By the time this thing is permitted, we might be able to add it on.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay. Chief, did you have anything update the board on?
No, sorry.
Okay. Oh, general manager.
Just a couple of real quick things from me. On the staffing side, Tuesday and Wednesday, we held interviews for the chief financial officer position. Had some good candidates, have not made a final decision yet. We're meeting again tomorrow to continue the discussion. Hopefully have maybe a decision made soon on that. The manager of plant operations position closed, and we received quite a few good applications for that job. The interviews are scheduled for October 30th, and so hopefully we'll have somebody on board soon for that. And then the last kind of senior position that's outstanding is director of operations. We have completed the job description for that. It's currently being circulated amongst the management group for some final comments. Steps after that will be to send it out and have it surveyed so we have an appropriate salary strict range for it. And then following that, we'll bring it to the board for discussion and possible approval. And then one last thing, I just want to talk about a program here that the California Special Districts has. So CSDA, they have a program they developed several years ago called the Certified Special District Manager Program. And as part of it, they created a very challenging exam that covers a very wide range of topics, including governance, legal, policy development, ethics. So don't try to take it, Gary. Strategic planning, public and customer relations, budget and finance, and then HR topics. And so if you take and pass this exam, you receive the designation of Certified Special District Manager. And I'm happy to say we now have 2 people at the district that have received that designation. And the most recent, just this week, she received her plaque, and it was Julie.
I heard the beginning.
Oh my.
We live it every day.
That's right. All right.
Cool.
All right, anything else? Any questions? No? Okay, I guess the notice of past and future meeting and events, and past wording, our water agency meeting on the 11th, we get an update on that, later on committee, report on that, and our next board meeting is November 2nd, and I think we're going to adjourn this meeting and move into closed session.
No,
No, you're right.